Hey squad, welcome back. Now today's video is probably going to be one of the most important videos I'll ever make, and it's really important that you watch this video and take note. Now this one is all about the range of human hearing and how much of that range you can actually hear. Now, as I've shared many times before in previous videos, the importance of protecting your hearing, because if you're involved in music or music production as an artist, as an engineer, as a producer, or in any capacity, your hearing is probably your most important asset in your creative role. And you need to do everything you can to protect it, and you also need to understand how well you are actually hearing. So if you find that when you're mixing down your songs, you're adding a lot of high end, the chances are you've probably got a high frequency deficiency. You're probably not able to hear the very high end, so you're exaggerating the knobs in order to compensate. The problem with that is everyone else who can hear that range that you can't hear are suffering due to over exaggerated high frequencies. Okay, so I want you to strap yourself in and check out this video. Now, I'm very conscious of the fact that as we go through the different frequency ranges, each one of us is going to be more sensitive to certain bands of frequencies than others. So make sure you keep your fingers very close to the volume knob to adjust accordingly. Secondly, in order to hear the whole range of frequencies that I'll be playing throughout this video, you really need to have some decent headphones or some decent monitors that have a bandwidth of maybe 30 Hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz, okay? And in fact, just to remind you that the range of human hearing, if you have absolutely perfect hearing where your hearing hasn't really diminished yet, you're going to be hearing frequencies from around 20 Hertz all the way up to 20,000 Hertz. Above or below that, our hearing system is not designed to pick those up. Okay, now finally, before we actually get into the video, do remember to support me on my musical journey at ducebeats.com and follow me on my other social media platforms. Links will be on the screen later on and in the description. Okay, well, let's get into it. Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to start from 32 Hertz, which is very low, and we're going to work through all of these frequencies all the way up to 20,000 Hertz or 20 kilohertz, which is very high. Now, for many of you, I don't expect you to be able to hear anything probably right up here. Okay, for many of us, we're going to be dropping off probably about 14 kilohertz and above. You're definitely going to hear in the mid-range section, and some of the low end. Now, it depends on the quality of your headphones or the speakers that you're playing through. Some of these frequencies will not be heard, because if the bandwidth of your headphones or your speakers don't go down as low as 32 Hertz, you'll see the reading on the screen, but you won't actually hear anything. But for those who have better or more expensive headphones or speakers, you'll definitely hear this stuff down here. And if you've got a sub in your room, you're definitely going to hear these. I didn't bother going down to 20 Hertz because it really doesn't matter at this stage. The whole point of this exercise is to figure out really where your hearing actually cuts off, and we're talking about in the higher frequency range. Okay, another thing that you need to bear in mind is that your hearing or your ears are going to be far more sensitive to these frequencies here. This in itself would probably come out pretty loud to you. I'm not adjusting the volume at all. The gain, the maximum output is for each of these tones is going to be minus 18 dB. Okay, now that's fixed. However, we will perceive these tones at very different volumes. So keep your hand very close to your volume switch so you can turn it down a bit if it's starting to become too difficult to hear or too piercing. For the younger ones, maybe those in your teens or early 20s, you'll find this lot up here very, very difficult to listen to. So you want to keep your fingers really close to the volume switch. I'm going to run each tone for about 8 seconds and then move on to the next one. Okay, so let's get started with the 32 Hertz tone. So I'm going to solo this and let's just play this back. So hopefully you heard that. If you didn't, don't worry. The chances are your speakers or your headphones don't extend down to that range. So now let's move on to 40 Hertz. Again, if you can't hear that on your speakers or in your headphones, chances are they don't extend that low either. You should start hearing these. If your monitors are fairly decent, you should start hearing these. So we're at 63 Hertz. And now let's move to 80 Hertz. Now you should definitely be hearing these tones. These are your low frequency tones, 100 Hertz. Now 200 Hertz. Now, as we go through these mid frequencies, you might find the tones are becoming a bit louder. I haven't increased the gain or the volume in any way. Our ears become more and more sensitive as we go through the mids and the high mids. Okay, so let's try this, 500 Hertz. ,800 Hertz. Now you might want to start adjusting your volume knob down a little bit, or at least be ready to take it down, because these tones might become a bit more piercing and a bit more difficult to handle. Now let's move on to 1000 Hertz or 1 kilohertz. So now 2000 Hertz or 2 kilohertz. Okay, so you're probably going to be finding these quite difficult to cope with. But again, just use your volume knob to make sure that you're not doing yourself any damage. But try your best to sort of work your way through just to make sure you're actually hearing these tones. 5000 Hertz or 5 kilohertz. Moving on to 7000 Hertz and 7 kilohertz. Now this is a very important frequency, because in this sort of range, this is where a lot of the important speech elements or frequencies exist. And if you over exaggerate 7 kilohertz in your mix on vocals especially, you could actually end up trashing your vocals. Okay, so 7 kilohertz, let's see how that sounds. Okay, now 10 kilohertz. Let's go into the higher range of frequencies. Okay, now for some of you guys, you might find for the next set of frequencies, you might struggle to hear them and they might start fading. For others who are, again, younger and who have looked after their hearing, these will become very piercing and very, you're going to be very sensitive to them. But the point is to try and figure out where your hearing cuts off and how sensitive you are. So this is an important exercise. So let's now go for 11 kilohertz. So now we're going to go up in 1000 Hertz increments, because that will help you to sort of pinpoint where your limits are. Okay, let's go. 12 kilohertz. Okay, so I'm now reaching my limits. I'm getting close to my cutoff. Let's see, 13 kilohertz. Okay, I can just about hear that. And now 14 kilohertz. Let's have a listen. Right, now for me, I couldn't hear a thing, nothing whatsoever. Let's move up, 15. Well, I'm not going to hear this. I'm just going to be watching the meters to see when the tone starts and stops. See what happens for you. So 15 kilohertz, if you can hear that, you're doing well. 16. Now, if you can hear 16 kilohertz, then you're in a good place. Let's try 17. If you're a youngster or in your teens, you're going to be very sensitive to this frequency. So now 18 kilohertz. Now, if you're hearing these tones up here, you're in good shape. Again, 19 kilohertz. You shouldn't be able to hear this, but if you can, even if you can hear it, this tone faintly, then again, you're in very good shape. Okay, and now 20,000 hertz. We're at the very edge of the range of human hearing. If you can hear it, then fantastic. If you can't hear it, then most people wouldn't be able to hear 20,000 hertz. So let's play that back anyway. Now, I really do hope this video has been of benefit to you. The first time I went through this range of frequencies a few years ago, in order to test my hearing, I was hearing up to about 16 kilohertz. Now, I can't hear past 13 kilohertz. And I spend a lot of time and care looking after my hearing, protecting it, because that's how I earn a living. And that's what you should be doing also. If you do have a deficiency across certain ranges, be aware of that, and therefore when you're involved in music creation, you will understand why maybe others can hear certain ranges of sounds and maybe you can't. Now, as always, it's great hearing from you, so do drop me a line in the comment section, like, subscribe and share this video. Also, check out my other social media platforms and follow me there. I'm really going to try and be more active on those other platforms. And support me on my musical journey at ducebeats.com. Finally, like the rest of the MTTC squad, remember to activate your notification bell so when my next video drops, you will find out straight away. Well, until next time, I'm Dr. Duce. Peace.